Hello guys, I hope you're well. So today I wanted to talk about individual needs and desires. Now, how many needs and desires do we have? Now, this would differ from person to person and viewpoint on life and what they really cherish or value, or it depends heavily on the surroundings. So this is a very, very crucial point because one of the main factors of success, quote unquote, is environment. Now, your environment, especially people, if you're surrounded by individuals that are hopeless or have no vision, you can't expect yourself to reach large heights or high heights. Yes, of course, there might be some anomalies somewhere on earth, but your self-perception, which a lot of times will come from the people around you and the environment around you. For example, if you live in a city which is very, very expensive and does not reward intellect, this is very, very crucial because your self-perception will mainly be based on monetary gain. However, if monetary gain was really the goal of life, why is it that most of the influential thinkers always stayed poor? So that's some food for thought here in this video. If money was truly the end goal, why is it that any individual that had a decent thought on life that's worth reading, why did they stay poor? That's the question. Now, we've sort of proved in a way that money shouldn't really be the end all, be all. Now, of course, you might be thinking, oh, how dare you say that when everything costs money? Trust me, I know. I'm broke myself. But the point is, once money becomes the sole goal in life, it dilutes the meaning of life. And you look at business, for example, let's use that as a reference point. Whenever a business started, it started in an ethical way. It started as an amazing business with a vision. We can mention a lot of names, but I don't want to do that. However, when they're sold to another company or a fund manager, look what happens. The vision is diluted. So whether life is about money or not, yes, everything costs money, and yes, we live in a messed up economy. I acknowledge these issues. However, making monetary gain the sole point of existence is futile because some of the most intelligent people historically that no one would really disagree with always remained poor. And I think this is the differentiation. Caring and basing your whole character on money is a very low IQ task. And this is my perspective on it. Yes, I could be wrong, you can argue. But getting money is not that big of a deal, and I'll explain to you why. The question is not how do you get money? The question, and it's always been like this historically, what are you willing to do to get money? So this is the question we need to ask ourselves. If you're willing to do anything possible to get money, then you have a lot of ways to make money, and I'm not going to mention. However, if you have a moral backbone and you have ethics and you have a limitation on what you're willing to do to get wealth, this is what you need to understand. So when we look at what people own, the first question you should be asking is, what if the assets owned, or what if they own stuff that they acquired from unethical wealth? But you see, we always look at what other people own and we get all excited. Oh my God, a Ferrari. Okay, the question is, how do you know this Ferrari? I'm not throwing any shade towards owning a Ferrari. It's just a random example before anyone's like, oh, is this guy funded by Lamborghini? Anyway, the point is, that was a joke, by the way. The point is, when we look at the physical goods people own, think to yourself, how were these physical goods acquired? And are you willing to do or commit to the same unethical procedures that people carried out to acquire wealth? So this is some food for thought. Wealth is amazing. Obviously, I wouldn't know because I'm poor, but that's fine, and I'm satisfied with that. So the question is, to what extent will you go for money is the second question. Now, if you believe you would do anything for money, I would pause for a second and think about that carefully, because you will have a limit, even though you can't perceive it right now. You cannot tell me logically that you're willing to do anything to become rich. If that's the case for you, then I wish you the best of luck, because that's not the right way to live. Because having money is all well and good, but once you acquire it, how are you going to preserve it? How are you going to prevent friends or family trying to use you for money? So this is another issue. So don't be quick to think that people that have nice things are free from problems. It's far from it. And people that unfortunately have a lot of wealth generally don't have a lot of family. And this is another point to talk about. People that have wealth, and I'm sure they won't admit this because they want to contribute to the facade that wealth will alleviate your problems in life, but it simply won't. Wealth will introduce you issues that you haven't experienced before, like families being separated, families not speaking to each other, one family member threatening another family member over money or land. So think carefully before you know, and I get it, there's no deficiency in you to want money. We are all vulnerable humans. You know, sometimes I'm walking around and I see an amazing car. I think to myself, wow, this is a beautiful car, you know, maybe one day I can own this. But then I do think to myself, you know, what did this individual do to acquire such physical goods? So when you look at amazing things in this life, think to yourself, how was it acquired? So if it was acquired by unethical or illicit means, would you be happy to do that? Would you be able to sleep at night? Ask yourself that, because if you look at, and I'm not throwing shade, if you look at wealthy families and you actually speak to them, you'll soon come to realize that they have a lot of deep ingrained family issues. And most of us, in fact, have family problems. But introducing wealth into a family essentially will dissolve it. And that's my perspective. So I get it, you know. I wish I didn't have this vulnerable human state where I look at nice cars or nice buildings and wish I was in it. But this is the bitter reality of life. You know, as humans, we will never be satisfied ever. And I think that's something I've always accepted with all of us. No matter what we own or what stage we are at life, we will never be satisfied with what we own. And this is the unfortunate reality of being a human. And that's also why, to give you a reference point, why do celebrities have to act nonchalant? Because it feeds into the illusion that these people are wanted, these people are desirable. But it's far from it. Why would I want to live a life where I can't even leave where I live and there's cameras in front of me? Why would any sane individual want to live an existence like that? So this is a crucial question to ask. Before you look at your favorite celebrity and think, oh my God, I wish I was like him, and I wish I was a footballer, or I wish I had wealth. Think to yourself, is this an existence you're willing to sacrifice to acquire? If it is, then the floor is yours and do it. But I think the fundamental understanding that wealth is linked to intellect is the biggest falsified idea that we've ever been fed as a nation. If you ever believe that wealth and intellect is a direct causative factor, you are very mistaken, because it's far from the case. And you don't have to look at basic economics to prove that. You know, acquiring an apartment in the 70s in London, which is 10K, and now it's 3 million, how does that make sense? It doesn't make any sense. So never ever think to yourself that wealth automatically means intellect, because it doesn't, and it never will, historically. And I've said this before, a lot of intelligent people will die poor. And I don't see that as a problem, because you're insinuating that they want to garner wealth, where not everyone wants that. And this is a reality that we need to understand in this life. Not every human on earth wants to become rich. And I'm not saying that because, oh, you're poor and you're just coping. It's far from the case. Yes, I may not have acquired a lot of wealth for many reasons, but people do have ethics. You know, contrary to public belief, people sometimes believe that humans lack ethics in 2026. But there are a lot of intelligent people out there that do have a moral backbone, and they're not willing to do whatever to become wealthy, because what's the point of becoming wealthy if you've betrayed or oppressed someone? What's the point? Okay, you may have an amazing car, you drive up and down London all the time. But if you have to take medication or take sleeping pills to sleep at night just because you've garnered wealth, is that worth it? And don't be mistaken, there are people that are wealthy that simply can't sleep at night. And this is something that you need to come to terms with. Now, I want to kind of go away from this topic because it's kind of making it seem like I have an issue with people hoarding wealth. I don't. I'm just merely having a discussion about it because I keep seeing, I feel like in 2026, the perception of money has been ruined. You know, people's relationship with money is clearly the opposite way. People have an obsession with it. You know, people will fight another brother over wealth. But what's the point? You know, what even is the point? So you've bought one property, you buy two, you buy three. What's the end goal? To own half the world? Then what's the goal afterwards? So there is no goal. This is the thing that I want you guys to understand. When it comes to money, you will never own everything. And this is the fairness of life. No matter what hedge fund you mention, BlackRock, Vanguard, all these amazing, prestigious, huge corporations that no one or people are scared to even mention verbally, right? All these corporations, no matter how much assets they manage, they will never own everything in life. And I think that's the fairness of life. And that's what upsets a lot of people with wealth. The thing that upsets business owners is they know they cannot buy every person. And I think that's the beauty of having knowledge and intellect. And that's why they also say knowledge brings power. Because not everyone is purchasable. Not everyone can be acquired through material goods. And I think that's the amazing thing with learning and having knowledge. Because it gives you power to decipher truth from falsehood. So guys, please, never ever be sold the perception that, you know, money is this mysterious thing where somehow you're blessed with it, now life is all good. You need to understand that as humans, no matter how much money you have, even if you don't have any money, that void inside will never be filled with material assets or material goods. I can assure you this. And of course, you'll never know that until you garner wealth, you know? And when you do, you realize that void has not been filled. Why? Because then you'll be surrounded with even wealthier people. And the endless race of money never ends. And then the generations after us chase the same cycle. And the cycle of trauma and oppressing others continues in the name of what? In the name of money? Anyway, that's kind of it for now. I don't want to dwell too much. I know people aren't going to like what I'm saying, but that's life. You cannot be everyone's cup of tea. And thank you so much, guys, and take care.